Elisabeth Louise Vigée was born in Paris in 1755. Her father, Louis Vigée, was a pastelist and a member of the Artists' Guild, the Académie de Saint-Luc, while her mother, Jeanne Massine, was a hairdresser. Her brother, Etienne Vigée, was a successful playwright. Baptized at the Church of Saint Eustache in Paris, Elisabeth was immediately entrusted to the peasants in the commune of Epinal. She did not return to Paris until 6 years later to enter as a boarder at the school of the Convent of the Trinity, Rue de Charonne in the suburb Saint-Antoine. From this age the young Elisabeth drew everywhere, on her notebooks, on the walls of her school. At the age of 11, she returned home. Soon her father recognized her artistic talent and gave her access to his studio. Her precocious gift prompted her father to declare, prophetically, "If anyone was born to be a painter, my child, it's you." The young Elisabeth was very attached to her father, who died when she was just 12 years old. Elisabeth's first teacher was her father. It took so long for her to overcome her grief that her mother thought she may never lift a brush again. She states that in her father's home she met the artists Doyen and Davin, and that Davin taught her to prepare a palette. Gabriel Francois Doyen was a respected history painter and academician, influenced by Rubens. Pierre Davin, beyond showing portraits in the Guild exhibitions of 1764 and 1774, nothing else is known. It was Doyen who encouraged her to persevere in pastel and oil, advice she followed in earnest. Doyen knew the artist Gabriel Briard and introduced Elisabeth to him. She went to his home in 1769 at the age of 14. Briard was a member of the Royal Academy of Painting and willingly gave lessons, even if he was not yet a professor. Unfortunately, he was a mediocre painter, although he had a reputation of being a good draftsman and, just as important, he had a studio in the Louvre. Elisabeth was making rapid progress and people were already starting to talk about her. It was at the Louvre that she met Joseph Vernet, an artist famous throughout Europe. He was one of the most popular painters in Paris at that time. The training and advice he gave was something Elisabeth never forgot. "I have constantly followed his advice because I'd never had a master who knew so much," she wrote. Whatever the case, he devoted most of his time to the training of Mademoiselle Vigée. Joseph Vernet and the artist Jean-Baptiste Rutz advised her to travel and admire the masterpieces of Luxembourg, and letters of introduction from these great artists opened for her the doors of the private collections of the great lords and princes in Paris. Elisabeth was thus able to study the great masters at leisure, to copy heads by Rembrandt and Van Dyck. She would later write, "You could compare me exactly to the bee, so much did I gather knowledge from it." All her life this desire to learn would never leave her, because she understood that a talent has to be worked on. Already she was receiving commissions to paint portraits, and now she began to earn a living. In 1768, Elisabeth's mother married Jacques-François Lesèvre, a jeweller, but even so, Elisabeth was expected to contribute to the support of her family, and to do so became a professional artist still in her teens. In 1774, her studio was forced to close because she was accepting paying clients without contributing to the guild. She was obliged to apply for membership and, when admitted, became eligible to exhibit in their salon. At the same time, the Lesèvre-Vigée family moved to the Rue Saint-Honoré, opposite the Palais Royal. Elisabeth established herself as a professional painter, and commissions poured in. Two great ladies took her under their protection: Madame de Verdun, wife of a farmer general, but an aristocrat by blood, and Louise Adelaide de Bourbon-Penthièvre, Duchess of Chartres. Nevertheless, despite this great advantage, Elisabeth is a serious young lady. She frequently refuses commissions for portraits made to her by suitors who want the chance to meet her. Although a commoner, she finds her place surprisingly well among the nobles of the kingdom. In 1775 she presented 2 portraits to the Royal Academy. As a reward, she was admitted to the public sessions of the Academy. Elisabeth was encouraged by her mother to marry the art dealer Jean-Baptiste Pierre Le Brun in 1776. Le Brun would prove to be an habitual gambler, insatiable womanizer, and painter in his spare time, who would exploit his wife's celebrity. But he was also undeniably very talented in his own right. 2 years later, in 1778, Elisabeth was called to Versailles to paint a state portrait of Marie-Antoinette. Although theoretically barred from membership in the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture because of her connections to a dealer, she gained admission in 1783 through the direct intervention of the King and Queen. Although a portraitist, she submitted an allegorical subject to the Salon exhibition as her reception piece, in the hope of entering the Academy as a history painter. Prior to that, on February 12, 1780, Elisabeth gave birth to her daughter, Jean-Julie Louise. She continues to paint during the first contractions and, it is said, barely lets go of her brushes during childbirth. After years spent honing her craft in the workshops of renowned painters, Elisabeth gradually developed a highly sophisticated and distinctly personal technique, which made her the equal of the most skilled portrait artists of the day. Her portraits of women, both accurate and flattering, ended up attracting the attention of Marie-Antoinette. The two women were born the same year, were pregnant at the same time, and loved their children, which drew them closer. She became a member of the Académie de Saint-Luc in 1774, and 4 years later was appointed official artist to Marie-Antoinette, who would become her patron and confidant. In 1783, thanks largely to the Queen's influence, Elisabeth was admitted to the Royal Academy of Painting and Sculpture on the strength of her reception piece, the allegorical painting Peace Restoring Abundance. The director of the Academy, Jean-Baptiste Marie Pierre, had been strongly opposed to admitting this newcomer. According to the rules of the period, women had no social status beyond that of their husbands. Her admission to the Academy was the ultimate honor. Such a success, especially as a woman in that period, had a negative reaction. Her male rivals were envious. They spread rumors that she was a debauched woman, accused of taking part in orgies, of being a spendthrift who warmed herself by burning banknotes and water-gilded paneling, of being the mistress of all of Paris. The same kind of rumors and, at the same time, were doing the rounds about Marie-Antoinette. A contemporary newsletter, Memoir Secret, also spread rumors that she does not paint her own pictures, that she does not finish them at least, and that an artist who is in love with her assists her. Such defamatory statements were deeply distressing to Elisabeth. As a matter of fact, her indifference to the luxuries attainable by money was well known to her close friends and family. Her dress, she tells us, was of the simplest, except on state occasions. She was usually attired in white muslin or lawn dresses, and as the money she earned was invariably appropriated by her husband, it often transpired that she had no more than 6 francs which she could call her own. After painting the first major official portrait of Marie-Antoinette in 1778, which met with a very positive reception, Elisabeth was regularly called upon to paint the Queen, and created 30 portraits of Marie-Antoinette in 6 years. The Queen enjoyed sitting for her friend Elisabeth and received her in her private apartments. In 1783, she painted a portrait of the Queen in informal attire, which provoked outraged reactions at court. Marie-Antoinette in a chemise dress, 1783, shows the Queen in a loose-fitting muslin frock, hair unadorned, holding a rose. But Elizabeth's reputation did not suffer. Her royal and aristocratic clients stayed very loyal and protective of her. In the summer of 1789, Elisabeth was with Countess du Barry, Louis XV's mistress, whose portrait she had begun, when the two women heard the cannon thunder in Paris. Elisabeth, who mistrusted hostile crowds, is not going to wait around and see what happens. On the nights of October 5 to 6, 1789, when the royal family was forcibly brought back to Paris, she left the capital by disguising herself as a maid and fled with her daughter and 100 louis, leaving behind her husband, her paintings and her fortune. Her husband was a supporter of the revolution, but Elisabeth remained a loyal monarchist. Later she would say of the end of the Ancien regime, "Women reigned then, the revolution dethroned them." Her first stop was Italy, then Vienna, passing through Prague, Dresden and Berlin. She finally reached St. Petersburg towards the end of July 1795. This was to be the start of a long exile of over 12 years. Separated from her husband and her life at court, she relied on her reputation and charm to build up a European clientele fascinated by the French style. She refused to read the news, because then she would learn which of her friends were being guillotined. In 1800, her daughter, aged 17, married, against Elisabeth's wishes, a man named Gaëtan Bertrand Negri, a man twice her age. It was heartbreaking for her. Disappointed by her husband, she had based her entire emotional universe on this one child. That same year she was finally removed from the list of people who were in danger and was able to return to Paris, which she did in 1802. In the summer of 1802, Elisabeth reached Paris. Her husband still occupied the house in Rue Gros-Chenet, and on the occasion of his wife's return, elaborate preparations were made to receive her. The staircase was lined with flowers, costly hangings of green and gilded thread decorated her bedroom, and a crown of gold stars was placed over the bed. She seems to have been in no way unappreciative of these demonstrations, although she remarks, and not without a touch of bitterness, that she herself was obliged to pay for them with her own earnings. The following year, Elisabeth made a journey to England, a country she had long wished to visit. Arriving in London, she was the object of much attention from the prominent people of the day, among them the painter Sir Joshua Reynolds. As usual, her brush was in demand, and her working time was quickly filled. Some jealousy seems to have been aroused among the English artists when it was learned that she had been commissioned to paint the Prince of Wales. Only one more journey of any length is recorded in her memoirs titled Souvenirs. This was to Switzerland in 1808, where she painted a number of landscapes and pastel portraits of Swiss noble families. It was after her Swiss tour that, having at length acquired, she says, an inclination for rest, she purchased a country seat at Louveciennes near Paris. In 1813, Vigée Le Brun died, an event which seems to have caused his wife genuine grief, in spite of the trials to which he had subjected her to during their years of married life. She was to write in later years. This blow, however, she admits, was far less than the cruel grief experienced at the death of my daughter. All the wrongdoings of the poor little thing were blotted out, she says. I saw her as in the days of her childhood, as I still see her. Alas, she was so young. Why did she not outlive me? In the following year of her daughter's death, her brother also died, and thus the last of her near ties was severed. She herself lived on until she had grown to be an old woman. To the end, she took pleasure in socializing with her remaining friends, and also to the end she worked at her beloved art. Her time was divided between her apartment in the Rue Saint-Lazare in Paris and her summer home. Two nieces were devoted in their care of her. On March the 30th, 1842, Elisabeth died very peacefully at her Paris residence at the age of 87. According to her wishes, she was buried in the cemetery at Louveciennes. Elisabeth earned more money in her time than any male artist. She was born in the age of Louis XV and died in the age of steam trains and photographs. In her lifetime, her reputation suffered because of her association with the old monarchy. The 19th century ignored her, and more recently, critics accused her of exploiting femininity, her own and her subjects, to charm her way into influence. Curator Joseph Bailio, an American who is the leading expert on Vigée Le Brun, has this to say: Vigée Le Brun is not worth celebrating because she is a woman. She is to be celebrated because she was a great painter. She could capture a likeness like no one else, and at the same time knew how to flatter. Her technique is extraordinarily beautiful, and she was one of the greatest pastelists of all time. My dear friends, I hope you enjoyed that presentation. I have been meaning to cover Elisabeth Louise Vigée Le Brun. I think the French have a slightly different pronunciation of Brun. But there you go, I'm not French. I also struggled with my French words there. I did try my best. Apologies to any French native speakers. You know, I'm doing my best here. It's different. It doesn't roll easily off my tongue, I can assure you. What a genius Elisabeth was. Absolutely amazing draftsmanship. Incredible. You know, her father was not a genius, and he saw the genius in her, in his daughter. And he wanted to, help her. Unfortunately, he died too early, really. But he'd already inspired her for her future career. And what a long and prestigious career it was. You know, there are different suggestions as to how many paintings she did in her life. Some say 600, some say 800. But I mean, they were only the paintings. This is not including the pastels and, pencil drawings that she did. She was very prolific, amazingly so. This is the Elisabeth Vigée Le Brun gallery. As you can see, there's just pages and pages and pages. It just goes on and on and on. Absolutely amazing, that she could whip these up, these portraits. No wonder she became very popular. She was very realistic. When you look at other paintings at the time, hers had a real freshness about them, and they captured the sitter's likeness. Look at all these. Incredible. She was also very much ahead of her time. They used to have a lot of white face paint, and they used to wear wigs. She actually set a trend for natural hairstyles and also no face paint. She managed to coach a countess to do that, and this countess actually went out with her hair worn down in natural curls and no face paint, and it set a trend. It really did. Also her style of dress, even though she was a supporter of the ancien regime, the elite, and no doubt because they helped her. You can't blame her for that. But she, in her manners, was definitely not part of that class. She came from a middle class family, probably lower middle class, and she wore very simple dresses. Her husband took all the money and used it. They did buy a hotel, and that became her famous salon. A lot of famous people came to her salon. She was very witty. She was a great conversationalist. She had everything going for her. My God. God blessed her. He threw some gold fairy dust on her, didn't he? Absolutely amazing. Of course, there was some tragedy towards the end of her life. But which of us do not have tragedy at some point in our lives? But she really did have a blessed life at the beginning there, a rapid rise to fame. I mean, she was teaching young ladies, she had her own art class as well, still in her teens. How incredible is that? Apparently women were not allowed to have live models, so they had to actually, the students had to draw from her drawings. She gave them examples to copy and to learn from, and she really was a fantastic draftsman, or draftswoman, or draftsperson. And yeah, you know, obviously Marie-Antoinette, there was a positive and negative side to meeting her, because Marie-Antoinette's popularity was, you know, it was going down, and the same slander and lies that they spread about Marie-Antoinette, they also spread about Elisabeth, about all these affairs that she was having, and burning money and burning gilded paneling. It was all rubbish. Of course, she wasn't doing that. There are some reports that suggest that she also had some affairs outside of her marriage. You know, her husband was having affairs. I don't know whether that's true. I have not found any source that verifies that to be true. I did read that in one of the blogs, but I don't know whether the author of that blog was inspired by the rumors. Can't find any evidence that she actually had an affair. But I mean, the marriage lasted a long time, so that's something. You know, she stuck with him, and she was genuinely grieved by his death. She said that in her memoirs. So you can see all these portraits going down here. Just incredible. She was so popular. And if we go here, there's my one. Can you see? It's also on this site. Private collection in Switzerland. That's where I live. The pastel has been judged by Sotheby's experts to be the work of Vigée Le Brun. The Sotheby's expert was actually Joseph Balliot, or Balliot, who I mentioned at the end. He was the one I sent him some images of it, and he was very kind and replied to me and told me it was definitely one of her works. So I'm guessing they put a date here, 1799, 1805. I'm guessing it must have been when she was in Switzerland in about 1808, was it, or 1809? I'm guessing it must have been then, unless somebody bought it from France. The actual history of it is lost. Don't know who the lady is. They said here it's similar to the Countess Tankerville portrait, which we have here. There's the Countess. They have the same blue gown, these very simple gowns with the low cut bodice, which was very popular in the early 1800s. So there is a similarity there indeed, and I was so lucky. I did talk about this in my documentary about Marie-Antoinette. I was so lucky to come by this. It was it wasn't signed, and it was just put on an online auction as a pastel by an anonymous artist, and something spoke to me, because I'd always been a great fan of Elisabeth from when I was a child. My mother had this cheap print on imitation satin of Elisabeth, from Elisabeth Vigée Le Brun, and I was fascinated with it. I was thinking, I want to be able to paint that good. It wasn't until a few years later that I found out who actually painted it, and from then on I was absolutely a fan. Yeah, I was a fanboy. So it was almost like Elisabeth was giving me this present, that I didn't know who it was, and I researched the whole weekend on the computer, because I knew it was somewhere in the back of my mind that I recognized this style. And yeah, on the Sunday evening, it finally clicked, and the expert Joseph Balliot confirmed it. So I was ecstatic about that. I also have the book, her memoirs. I'll show you on the screen now. I got that a few years back. I read it. I can really recommend it. She had obviously an amazing life, and there must have been a lot of men who, were very angry, but a lot of the artists in the Louvre who were very angry about this woman who was obviously a genius, and a lot of them did not like it. She did have some supporters, male artist supporters, but a lot of them were very envious, and of course she had the support of Marie-Antoinette. She did well, and to live to that age, what was it, 87? In those days, that is a long life. And especially she had to go into exile, and just an amazing adventure. before she came to Earth for that incarnation, they must have said, well, here's the blueprint of your life. You know, you've earned a few karma points. It's going to be a good one. I mean, wow. Wow. What do you think, my viewers? Would you have liked to have had her life? The fact that she escaped the revolution was quite amazing as well. Lady Luck was on her side. She just got away in time. So apparently the hotel that she bought, or she and her husband were actually her money, was the Hotel, is that how they say it in French? Hotel de Loubert. And I can't find any evidence that that hotel still exists. If it does, and anyone knows about it, please let me know. I also couldn't find out where she actually retired to, Louisiane, I think that's how they pronounced it, that village. Can't find any evidence of her place, her villa, or where she lived there. So that seems, maybe that perished also over time. And I don't know where she lived in Switzerland either. Couldn't find any record of that. You know, bear in mind that when I do these presentations, I have a limited amount of time for my research. So any scholars out there, bear with me. You know, I don't know everything about her. So if anyone can enlighten me on a few facts that I may have forgotten about or got wrong, you're quite welcome to do so. By the way, the book, I think it's on Amazon. You can get it in the USA. I saw that. It's about, for the paperback, which I have, it's about $65, and for the hard book is $200. As you can see my shelf, there's quite a few books on art. Does anyone have books anymore, or is everything on Kindle now? I love books. I love the feel of them. I like to pick them up. Something tangible. I do like watching documentaries also, you know, just like you guys are doing now. I like doing that. I like listening as well, but I like both. But I'm not really into listening to an e-book, you know, with headphones on. That's just not my thing. It's a personal thing. And I'm rambling. And at this point, I'm going to go. I'd love to have your feedback. What do you think about Vigée Le Brun? Does her art interest you, or you don't like her? You into modern art? I just think her art and her life is very interesting, and I hope you agree. Don't know what's coming next. We'll have to wait and see. I don't even know myself, actually. I just start looking through different things and then come up with a suitable subject that I hope you find interesting. All right, my dear friends, take care, God bless, and bye-bye. Just an addendum here, because I thought I'd finished, and then I was at my little sort of workshop, and I was looking through something. I wasn't looking for anything connected to this story, and lo and behold, I'd forgotten that I had this very old etching, and look who it is. It's the husband of Elisabeth, Vigée Le Brun, Monsieur Le Brun. This is called Fire du Cabinet, and he's actually done an engraving after somebody else's painting, and I put it through the script at the bottom there, the text. I put that through the Google Translate. It says Cabinet Fire from the original painting by Cornelis Trost, or in some sources say Trust. And I have found the painting. Let me just show you here. That's the actual painting by Cornelis Trost. But his title for it is The Guard Room. So which looks like a guard room, doesn't it? I don't know why that has that title. But what is interesting about this, and if I can just show you, let me just show you, and I don't know if you can see that. Let me just try and zoom in a bit more. It's a bit fuzzy now. But I think it mentions there. I can't really see myself, but I'm looking at the translate here, and lo and behold, it says in Paris at Joubert. So that was the hotel that they bought, the Hotel Joubert, and that was on the Rue des Mathurins. I'll put that on the screen. Rue des Mathurins, at the corner of where the Sorbonne University is. So I'm wondering if there's any trace of anybody knows out there what happened to it. I'm going to have another look after this and see if I can find any additional information. But there you go, I found that amongst my etchings. Yeah, and one more thing, I said that I couldn't find any information about Elisabeth having an affair, but something else has just come to light now, where apparently a gardener of hers wrote in his diary that she was having an affair with a Count Vaudron or something like that, and that she had a snuff box with a lock of his hair encased on the top of the snuff box, and that they had kept up a correspondence for years, and that they were probably lovers, and that when she fled during the revolution, her brother Etienne burnt all the letters for safety reasons. So, wow, it might have been a case of what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What do you think? Well, I think that is about it, unless I can find any more information about the Hôtel de Joubert or Joubert. Yeah, okay. I'll leave you with that.